Let me tell you something that deeply marked me. I remember a friend, a hardworking, responsible man, but absent. He spent long hours working, overtime, sacrificing time that would never return. And when he wasn't working, he was with friends, drinking, listening to other people's stories, while his own story was slipping through his hands. One Sunday afternoon, he was at home, watching his favorite team play. At that moment, his 9-year-old daughter slowly approached him, shy, a little afraid. She said, "Dad, can I ask you a question?" Without taking his eyes off the TV, he replied coldly, "Go ahead, but make it quick. I'm watching the game." And then that little girl asked a question that would change everything. "Dad, how much do you earn per hour?" He, slightly annoyed, replied, $100. The girl looked down and took out a small bag of coins. They were her savings, months of effort. She skipped snacks at school just to save that money. And with a trembling voice, she said, "Dad, can you sell me 1 hour to play with me?" That man fell silent. He turned off the television, slowly stood up, and walked toward his daughter. His eyes filled with tears, he hugged her and began to cry like never before. Because in that moment he understood something. He had been investing in everything except what mattered most: his family. And while that scene was unfolding in that living room, something immense could be felt, a different atmosphere, a divine presence, resting in that man's heart, as if God himself was showing him what he was about to lose. And at the doorway, his wife stood watching the scene, also in tears. Marriage is not easy, and anyone who says otherwise has not understood what it truly means to love. There is no perfect manual. Two people with different stories, different wounds, decide to walk together. And that alone is a challenge. But there is something that makes the difference. When that journey is lived in communion with God, it becomes more bearable, more conscious, stronger. Because the problem is not that crises exist. The problem is how we face them. There are marriages that don't break because of a lack of love, but because of a lack of presence, lack of attention, lack of time. As you just heard, the man who was once close, loving, present, had become distant, cold, almost unrecognizable. And this happens more often than we think. Not because we stop loving, but because we stop prioritizing. Because we allow work, pride, distractions to take the place that belongs to family. And the same happens in marriage. It doesn't fall apart overnight. It wears down little by little. Through words that were never spoken, through forgiveness that never came, through glances that turned away, through outside influences that entered without being stopped. And there comes a moment when it feels easier to give up than to rebuild, easier to break than to fight. But that's where the mistake lies. Because rebuilding is possible, but it requires something that is rare today: humility. Humility to say, "I was wrong." Humility to ask for forgiveness without justifying yourself. Humility to listen without attacking. It requires returning to what truly matters, to sincere communication, to the small details, to quality time, the kind that money cannot buy. And above all, to place God back at the center. Because when God is at the center, pride loses its strength, forgiveness finds space, and love stops being just a feeling and becomes a decision. Maybe today your marriage is not well. Maybe there are wounds, distance, silence. But ask yourself this: have you truly done everything possible to save it? Because true love is not the one that never fails. It is the one that, despite falling, chooses to rise and try again. Marriage is not perfect, but it can be restored. And sometimes, what seems like the end today can become the beginning of something much stronger, more conscious, and much more real.